Welcome to another inspiring episode of the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hosts Melanie Johnson and Jenn Foster are the owners of Elite Online Publishing. They're both Wall Street Journal, USA Today best-selling authors. We're really glad you're here because this podcast was designed for you. Meet industry experts that share their secrets and strategies. Get successful results for your business in money, relationships, health, and your life. Each episode is going to inspire you to take action towards reaching your greatness.
Hi, everyone. This is Melanie Johnson along with Jenn Foster, my business partner at Elite Online Publishing. Hey, Jenn.
Hey, everyone. How's it going today?
I've been having a great day. I've been having a great week, a great month. It's all been good. And you know what? Everyone's coming out of this COVID thing, but there's been all this transition and there's still a lot of stress. So today, if you've ever felt like, help, I want to get out of what I'm doing, and what to do when you are stressed out and from trying to keep it all together. I think we're all trying to keep it all together. Well, we have the author of the title of that book with us today, Claire Smith, and we're going to learn how to get unstressed from trying to keep it all together. Welcome, Claire. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. It's so good to be with you, Jenn and Melanie. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Great. Well, Dr. Claire, tell us a little bit how you got started in this and helping and coaching people to relieve stress and to be guilt-free about it.
Yeah. So the simplest answer is it evolved.
Yeah.
I think I've always been aware of people dealing with this because it's something I've had to deal with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And but being more intentional came more out of working with my clients. Now, I must say the first, when I look back at the first book I wrote, even though it was about prayer, when I looked at the first paragraph, it had something about stress. So I think it's always been an element of my work since I started coaching. But more recently, especially this last book, Help I Want Out, What to Do When You're Stressed Out from Keeping It All Together, I noticed some things with myself and with my clients, and I was writing from that and bringing it more to the surface now and being more intentional.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I tend to work with leaders, excuse me, and people who are busy. Because some busy people are not leaders, though leaders tend to be busy. And so it's always this issue of managing expectations. Their own expectations, sometimes that's the worst, but also the expectations of other people. So managing that and trying to support them in the journey, I would say journey to freedom, where they're easier on themselves, but also they're able to establish healthy boundaries and live knowing that you don't have to do everything and you don't have to be everything.
That's a great point. So many of us think we have to be everything and do everything. And in one of your chapters, you talk about freedom of limits. So walk us through, what does that mean, freedom of limits?
Yeah. So like I said, expectations and what we put on others. One of the things I say is that other people know what they need and what they want. They don't necessarily know what you need and what you want. So unless you determine your limits, you're always going to be at the mercy of other people's desires and other people's wants. So you have to set your limits. You have to communicate them. And so when you do that, it's freeing for both sides. So, and the limits are related to a few things. They're related to, I would say, your sense of self. And in saying that, so the other things I think spill out from that. Your self-understanding. Related to your self-understanding is your knowledge of your call, your purpose first, then your call, then your assignment. And these allow you to know when to say yes and when to say no. They also allow you to avoid the pitfall of seeking to be a people pleaser. Now, being a people pleaser is different from pleasing people, because I think in life we always have to please people. It's just life is reciprocal. But when we're a people pleaser, we're coming from a place where we don't really know who we are and understand who we are. So we're getting our validation from people and doing things. And so we're not able to establish the limits. Whereas when we understand who we are, what our purpose, call, and vocation are, then we can say, no, that's going to take me away from what I need to do. So some examples. So first example is going to give the difference. And this is an illustration I've used in my book. The difference between, among the three things, the purpose, call, and understanding. So I was working with a client. What's my purpose? We can make such a big deal of it. And I think we make too big a deal of it. Because, and I used to, we have to find our purpose. And I know there are people who dedicate programs and so on to do that. And so it's not hitting that. But I have become convinced that we're never far from our purpose. Now, when we know it, we can intentionally live into it. But our purpose is so integral to who we are that we're never going to be far from it. So this client, I gave her some questions and we discussed and so on. And I have the questions in the book too. But one of the things we figured out as we went along was that her purpose is caring for people. Now, all of us are to care for people, but for some people it's like a gift. Have you ever noticed that? For some people, it's like they're just able to do this thing. It's just who they are. They don't have to think about it or anything like that. So that was it for purpose. And then when we examined it, we figured out that her call was to be a nurse. In terms of her assignment, we looked at how that shifted. So initially, she was a full-time nurse in terms of on the ward all the time. Then she got an administrative piece to it. So the assignment shifted a little. Now added to that is teaching other new nurses. So she spends much less time on the ward. She's still in her purpose. And the purpose spills over into other areas. But she's still in her purpose. She's still in her vocation, her call, and she's still in her assignment. And so with understanding that, she can set some limits on things that take her away from that. And she can say no gracefully. I can't do that. She doesn't have to go into the whole rigmarole of purpose and all of that. Then sometimes she can just suggest to other people, maybe you can find somebody else to do this. And I think for people who are overloaded, sometimes they feel guilty to step back from stuff. But when you realize that, one of the things you need to do is to assess. And I have all sorts of tools in the book, but you want to assess, is this, of all the things I'm doing, what's the most essential? And then give people time to find somebody else. And if possible, suggest somebody. You may not be able to suggest somebody, but don't allow people to guilt you into doing what you shouldn't be doing. Because like I said, people know what they want and need, and they're not here to look out for you. You're blessed when you have people who do that.
I think so many times people will, sorry to cut you off, but so many times people who are serving all the time and doing things for others forget that they can say no, because I think that they feel like almost like their purpose is to serve every single person and to say yes all the time. And they have to, sometimes, especially certain personality types, say yes all the time. And then they don't have any time for themselves at all, not even time to sleep, So.
Right. And when that happens, so then we talk about boundaries and margins in your life. Before talking about boundaries and margins, there's a quick thing I want to mention to another example. It's like not as detailed as the previous one. I was working with a single mom, and she was concerned about her purpose as well. And, wanting to do things, help friends and all of that. But we came to the conclusion that her main call right now with her two children. And once we did that, she was able to filter out so many things. You know, we looked at, okay, you do one time for your friends. What does that look like? How much time for that? You know, so I think there are simple things we can do to help with knowing how to say no.
Let's talk a little bit about, in your book, you talk about your worth, your self-worth, people's perception of you versus your perception of you versus God's perception of you. Let's talk about that and relationship worth too.
Yeah. So it's important to understand that we are important to God, that we are unique, we're wonderfully created. And so when we understand that as a foundational aspect of our being, we don't need to be running back and forth to get validation from people, like I mentioned earlier. So we don't need to do that. We need to just zero in on who we are in God, and to know that we'll always have value. We don't need people to give us value, and it's not about people. It's not about people. It's not about not being in a relationship with people. It's about being in right relationship with people. And the only way to be in right relationship with people is, again, to know who you are and understand your value. And for me, that value comes from God. I'll just read something here. God made you. These words are easy to say without absorbing their full impact. To understand their significance, therefore, you must ask who is God. And so I talk about God is God being there, infinite, and all of that. So God created you is weighty. You're not ordinary, for the God who is made you. And so you're made in God's image. And this, so you're of inestimable value to God, because if God is infinite and God is all of this and God is love and all of that, and you're made in God's image, then you can't really put a price tag on who you are.
Yeah.
You're extremely valuable. So you don't need to run to people who don't value you. You know when people don't value you, when they're not allowing you to live and work from your gifts. When they're not respecting the boundaries you're trying to set. They don't get who you are. They don't value you. They may value what you bring, but they don't value who you are.
Yeah.
And why margins and boundaries are important is because it's easy to lose sight of who God is and who we are. And when we're running 24/7 almost, and the only time we stop is when we sleep, it's hard to remember who we are. It's hard to remember why we're here. So boundaries are the larger pieces. Like I talk about Sabbath. I don't use it in the strict sense of the six and do nothing and so on. I think there's a place for that. And if you can do that, that's great. But at a minimum, you should be having, at a minimum, you should have one day where, even if it's 3 hours, because I know for people with families, it might be more tricky. But even if it's 3 hours, you sign off from everything. You do nothing related to work. You pray, you meditate, you read, you journal, something inspirational, something uplifting. So that's one type of boundary. Taking a break every now and then. I know I have to step back a couple of weeks ago. I just have to stop.
That really changed my life in a way. I had, I've always prayed, but then it was given to me about praying for longer periods of time. Like, how long do you pray for? And all of a sudden, when I got into saying, oh, well, I should pray for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. And when I tried it, it was like, wow, this is really a different effect on your life. It's like think about, you only have a conversation with your sons or daughters or your parents or friends, and you only give them 5 minutes, maybe once a day or twice a day, or maybe it's only once or twice a week for some people. But then if you want to have that rich relationship, you have to spend that time, and it regrounds you. And I think God wants that from us. He wants to have that relationship. It's a great reminder. That's such a great reminder, Claire.
Yeah. And as you say that, that brings us to the margins, because it's, as you're pointing out, the need for it to be every day. And so every day we should start with some acknowledgement, before we run into everything. Acknowledging who God, God, and grounding ourselves, reminding ourselves why we're here, and then in the evening, take some time to process the day. Take some time to, and journaling is a great way to do it. Take some time to really center and go back over the day and release it. Because some people don't sleep well because they don't release the day before they go to bed. And so release the day, the good, the bad, remember God's grace, forgiveness, and then determine. Some people prefer to set their day at the beginning of the day. For me, I find it more helpful to do it at the end of the day, and then I can go back to it in the morning. But
I think journaling is very, very important.
Yeah.
So I got a journal when I turned 8 years old, and I started writing. And I think it's really important to start that habit when you're young. So give your kids all a notebook and a journal, and to reflect and write it down. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, I don't need a journal, like there's nothing to say. Well, even just writing your thoughts down or writing what you did that day helps to kind of, let things out and let things go.
We had a trip recently with my son's girlfriend's grandparents, and it was at their home, and they had pulled out journals that she had done, and it was like from 10 years ago, and she was saying what they did in the day and what her granddaughters did when they were with her. And she would even, and I love that they were reading, it's like, oh, the girls were just little pistols today, they did this right or wrong or whatever. But it was this whole memory of that, and it was very powerful.
Yeah, that's like they can write a biography when she's gone, or she could write an autobiography. But
remember all the things that they
really did. Because, and I think the thing with journaling too is that a lot of times we have stuff rattling around in our head, and it's just going around in our head, and we're not able to process it properly. But when we write it down, it helps us with processing, and so we get the clarity as well.
Very true. Thanks, Claire. You gave so much great advice today.
Yeah. Tell us where people can go to find you and to get more information about you and your books.
Okay. So ClaireAnnSmith.com. I know you put it somewhere because my pronunciation is a little different. So when I say Claire Ann Smith, it might come out a little different. Oh, it is a different for sure. So ClaireAnnSmith.com. And if anybody wants to contact me or, talk about this some more, maybe get some one-on-one tips, like for your people, I'm willing to do like a 20-minute session without any charge. If they want to do that, they can contact me at info@ClaireAnnSmith.com. info@ClaireAnnSmith.com. Awesome. And with the site, I have like different strands to what I do, but if you go to ClaireAnnSmith.com, you'll see everything. You'll see the media, the books, and everything.
Beautiful.
The best way. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. We really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast because we always bring you wonderful, great, enlightening information to educate, inspire, and motivate you and take you to the next level. And if you're looking to write a book and would like to work with us, fill out our submission form at eliteonlinepublishing.com. We make all the authors we work with #1 bestsellers. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today, all of their authors become #1 bestsellers.